This is Chad Riffle from the K-12 ETA with a new video walking you through the steps to create an item bank assessment. Alright, from your dashboard in Illuminate, you're going to go to the black bar and select the word assessment to get your drop-down menu, and we're going to select Create New Assessment. The next screen is going to ask you what type of assessment you want to build. For this tutorial, we're going to build an item bank assessment, so we'll select Item Bank and say OK. Here at the next screen, what we're going to do is select Assessment Standard Mode, because we're not creating a specific question and we're not adding a passage. We are creating a whole assessment, and we're using standard mode because we want to be able to select a standard and choose questions based on that standard. This will bring you to the Item Bank Assessment Creation screen. There are 6 steps involved, and they're going to walk us right through each step. I'll go through it with you here though. So the first step is to choose the assessment name. This is very important because this is the name that you have to search in order to find the assessment when you're ready to administer it. So give it a good name, something you'll remember. The next part is asking for a description. Give us a quick description of what the assessment is about, your academic year that you plan to administer the assessment, the grade level of the students that are going to take the assessment, and the subject of the assessment. Once you have all of those things in, click Create. This will take you to step 2. In step 2, you're choosing the standards that the questions on the assessment are going to address. So the first part is filtering down to the standard. And we do that by selecting our Common Core standards for Michigan and our subject, and then we will select the grade level that we want the standards for. Once you have your filters set, the standards will be listed in the white space below the gray, and it's listed in a way that you have to kind of filter down or dig down to the actual standard you want. So I know that for the purpose of this tutorial, I need to filter down into reading, literature. I want to go into key ideas and details, and then in key ideas and details, I want to select this standard here about the theme or of the story. So I select it. It says selected right here, so I know it's selected. And if I look over in the gray bar to the right, I can see that that standard is selected here. There's one standard selected, 0 items, 0 passages. If you choose more than one standard here, that's okay. You can choose as many as you need for the assessment, and those standards will appear. And I'm ready to go to the next step. The third step is to filter down the items that you want to view and then select the items for the assessment. So at the top it says that the standard I have selected is correct here. The next question is asking me about item banks. What item banks do I want to pull questions from? An item bank is the place where all the standard or all the questions are being held, and all of the K-12 ETA have access to the inspect item banks and the PAST or PASST K-12 social studies item banks. I suggest sticking with these 3 item banks. NGSS Inspect is the science, PAST K-12 social studies is going to be your social studies standards, and then the regular Inspect is your math and ELA standards. The next filter down allows you to select the item types. These are the types of questions that you are going to view when you're administering the assessment. The filter after item types allows you to choose questions or items with a passage or without a passage. And the final filter on the left column is attributes. Attributes will allow you to change advanced options for your items or your questions and advanced options for the passage type. In the right hand side of the filters, you can choose the author if you have an author that you know you want questions from. You can choose item keywords if you have certain vocabulary you'd like included in the questions. You can choose the passage title, so that way you can have multiple questions where the student only needs to read one passage and answer multiple questions based on that passage. And the last filter at the bottom allows you to pull up a specific identification number for a specific question that you've used in other assessments. Once you have all the filters set, you click the blue search button, and you will be given a list of questions or items based on the filters you set. If there's a long passage with no questions, that means that passage goes along with the question below it. When you're on an actual question, at the top of the question you'll see some little icons. Those icons are telling you what type of question you have, whether or not it can be administered by paper and pencil, and the standard that's addressed by the question. At the bottom of each item, or at the bottom of each question, there's a little blue writing that says click to show rationale and item info. That gives you some very useful information like misconceptions that may have impacted a student's ability to answer a question correctly, the standards, all of the standards that could be considered addressed by this question, depth of knowledge, taxonomy, and the master ID if you found a question you really liked and you wanted to search it later. As you find questions that you like, click the Add button if it says Add, and when it's added, it will say Added in the blue bar. So as I go through, I'll select a few different questions, and then when I'm done selecting the questions I want on my assessment, I will click the Next button. Step 4 is asking you to review the items that you selected to create your assessment. Scan through and make sure that all of the items you selected are correct, then click Next. Step 5 is asking you to prepare a test booklet. This is specifically for assessments that you plan to print and administer paper pencil. If you're not planning to administer the assessment paper pencil, you can click Next to skip this step. Step 6 gives you an assessment overview that allows you to check the depth of knowledge of questions you selected on your assessment. It also gives you the opportunity to make sure that when you do an item analysis, you are assessing all standards properly. The final step is to click Publish, which will take you back to the assessment edit screen. On the top right, where it says Return to Illuminate in the black bar, is where you'll click last. Now you've created an assessment in the Itembank.